So we need to get started. I'd like to call the study session to order and have a roll call.
Alderperson Robinson.
Present.
Hertz.
Here.
Maynard. Swanson.
Here.
Parker.
Here.
Poulos.
Here.
And Healy.
Here.
Mayor Tomes.
Here.
We
Thank
have a
you.
quorum.
Good. Public comment. Anybody sign up? Nobody signed up for public comment, so then we will move right on to presentation. Chief, you're up.
Good evening. There we go. City Council, Mayor, thank you for giving me the opportunity to present to you our proposal for a drone program with the City of Rock Island Police Department. So let me start by basically talking about where the law sits with the state of Illinois. It started out as the Freedom from Drone Surveillance Act, but after a 4th of July parade shooting in Highland Park in 2022, it got amended to become the Drones as First Responders Act. And basically allowed a little bit more leeway in what law enforcement can do with drones. Commonly referred to as drones, it is a small unmanned aircraft system, but we'll just refer to them as drones throughout this whole presentation. They are becoming increasingly common throughout law enforcement in the entire country, including every department in the Quad City area currently has a drone program. So why do we start one? Why do we need one? For starters, we use it for proactive safety measures. These would be for parades or races or concerts, any kind of pre-routed events, and be able to monitor the security issues in real time. Oh, I'm going to need to do that. There you go. Might be able to better detect a breach of the event space, maybe breach of barricades or fencing, and be able to see it from a vantage point and detect any kind of safety threats or issues that we wouldn't be able to normally see on the ground. Be able to evaluate crowd size or see if all of a sudden there's a problem that we wouldn't be able to otherwise see. In addition, we can use it proactively to create maps or determine best routes, assess traffic and pedestrian flow during events. But I want to assure you that it does not include monitoring of any political protest, march, demonstration, or any other assembly that's protected by the First Amendment. The second major use would be for emergency response. Now, this isn't going to be a full-on drones as first responder program like you would see in, say, California, where they're basically launching drones for just about everything. We would be using it in emergency situations such as missing endangered subjects, search and rescue operations, or coordinating the response of emergency vehicles and personnel. Undoubtedly, you all saw what happened in Bettendorf on Friday morning. Subject to mental health crisis jumped off the bridge, and Bettendorf was able to launch their drone, locate the subject in the water, help direct the boats to the person and save their life. Typically, what for missing endangered subjects is maybe dementia patients that just leave their home unannounced, or maybe even small children that happen to get out. We also use it for disaster or public health emergency situations, gathering real-time intelligence, or also de-escalation. I keep forgetting to move that forward. So I want to kind of focus on that de-escalation for a moment. That's ended up being a real benefit for the drone programs for law enforcement because, well, I'm sure you're aware, oftentimes we get very limited information through 911 or even misinformation. Oftentimes we get information that is just a tiny snippet saying maybe some people are fighting and I believe one of them has a gun. If we're able to launch a drone and get it there before the officers and monitor that in real time and get that real time information and report to the officers that sometimes we get there and there's nobody fighting, there's nobody has a gun, and maybe that officer can just slow down, doesn't need to be going into a situation thinking they may have to be escalating to deadly force. So that has been a true benefit of drones responding to emergency situations. I don't really foresee us being able to get those out in time. Um, we're talking about situations like that are more like Chula Vista, California, where they just launch them from locations around the city. we wouldn't be able to have that capability. So most likely in situations like that, unless we're already operating it, we won't be able to necessarily launch one in time, but hopefully there are situations where we're currently using one, we might be able to have that de-escalation as a benefit. We'd also be able to use it in investigations. I'll get into this a little bit more later for search warrants on private property, large footprint crime scenes, hostage barricades, subjects, and what I forgot to put up on there is fatality crash reconstruction. And we have the ability to take photographs and integrate with our current software. Other uses might be in just conducting infrastructure inspections for city-owned property or demonstrating the drone's capabilities during public engagement or recruitment events. So let's talk about what the drone program is not. According to Illinois statute, a drone cannot be weaponized. We have no intention of doing anything like that. No facial recognition is allowed. Drones cannot be used as a listening device, and they can't be used for random airborne surveillance. In other words, we're not going to be launching a drone just to generally patrol an area. We can't do that. No license plate readers are allowed on the drone, and they can't be used for traffic enforcement or issuing citations. Any information gathered, such as photographs or videos, has to be destroyed within specific timeframes based on what the circumstances were. So in retention, basically, if were used during a routed event such as a parade, everything has to be destroyed within 24 hours. Now, quite honestly, I'm not really sure why we would even be recording or taking photographs during those type of situations, unless perhaps a situation came up where somebody was viewing something and thought maybe we have a problem, started recording, and then maybe realized that it wasn't the problem. In any event, that has to be purged within 24 hours. For all other uses, you have a 30-day window to get rid of everything, unless there is evidence of criminal activity that would be used in a court proceeding. And the way we would treat that would be the same way we treat our body cameras. So we would classify it in accordance, depending on is it a misdemeanor, is it a felony, and so forth. And if it needs to be held for court purposes, that's what it would be held for. The metadata, the flight path data, or telemetry can be retained, and any information that's gathered that we need to use for training purposes can also be retained. So if you're using for a parade or a special event, public notice has to be given at least 24 hours prior to the event. We do it at major entry points to the event. If say it was down at Schriever Park, we definitely post it down there. We utilize media and social media to make the announcements and do everything in accordance with the FAA safety regulations. If we do end up using it in an emergency situation, that has to be reported to the state's attorney's office within 24 hours. Any record of our usage, such as the flight data and metadata, telemetry, can be disclosed through a FOIA request. And every time we launch that drone out for an emergency deployment, we would do an incident report for that. Reporting any ownership is required to the state of Illinois yearly, and then the department's policy will be made available on the city's website. For quality assurance, we'll be doing proactive management and supervision, strict policy controls, mandated reporting requirements, as I've already spoke of, and public notifications, and being as transparent as we can. FAA certified remote pilots and comprehensive ongoing training. The platforms that we're proposing, there are two. There's an indoor and outdoor platform. This outdoor platform is a DJI M30T. This is a pretty commonly used, very popularly used drone for law enforcement. The vast majority throughout the country utilize this one. I think this particular drone is about 75% in the state of Illinois. Has a 41-minute flight time, thermal capabilities, zoom capabilities. You can attach a spotlight and a speaker. You can't listen or hear and have two-way conversations with it, but you could speak to somebody directly. Say if you're in a location that you can't actually access very easily, but you can reach, you can be able to communicate directly to somebody through the drone. And tethers are available if you need to perhaps run it on a continuous basis for several hours. The indoor platform is the Brink Lemur 2. It's really unparalleled, and with all the other manufacturers that are out there. This would be strictly used for indoor and, let's say, tactical, such as hostage barricade subjects. Basically, this has the capability to uh, break glass on a second floor window and enter. It does infrared imaging and mapping once it gets inside. It does have the ability to do two-way communications back and forth with maybe a barricade subject or a hostage taker. And it also has the ability to right itself if it gets knocked out of the air. The demonstrations are very impressive with this one, and quite honestly, in my research, I haven't been able to find any indoor platforms that match it. Um, the two-way communications, uh, consider this to be something like we would use in hostage negotiations, where we would throw a bag phone in to somebody that's a barricaded subject or a hostage taker. We don't currently have a bag phone. I haven't had one for quite a long time. So this would take the place of that and hopefully eliminate the need for something like that. Questions?
I have a couple, Tim.
Yeah.
So, um, can you I guess answer some questions on the training? I mean, how many officers will you have that will be trained to operate the drones? Like say a per shift thing? I guess I'm looking at, you know, where do they go? Where are we getting the train? Where are they getting the training at? And do we have one on each shift? And there must be multiple. Obviously, people have days off in an emergency situation. So can you kind of go over that with us real quick?
Well, for starters, right now, I have about 5 people that I want to send to training. I definitely would like to expand that. My goal would be to have at least one person trained on every days off group on every shift. Because if you need it and need to deploy it, you don't want to have to call somebody from home and to operate it. Right now, with some of our staffing and getting people through the class, um, as far as the licensing, we're talking about what's called a Part 107 license or the FAA. There is some training that we have set up right now through the mobile team unit, a couple classes that we want to send them through, including how to take that test, which I'm told is not easy. But we also currently we have some people that are already drone pilots that are interested in the program, so they already have experience on how to use these. We're also going to reach out to some of the other agencies and see maybe if we can do some cross training through them. And I also, since some of them are using the exact same drones, maybe get some helpful tips on that. I'd like to do ongoing training throughout the year so that they have proficiency in them, because I know it's probably a skill that if you don't practice it enough, you're not going to be able to utilize it when the time comes.
Tim, where's the training? Where's the training at, and is there a cost associated with the
Uh,
training?
no, currently the training that we have everyone going to is our mobile team training unit in East Moline, which we pay a yearly fee to attend training for free on that.
Okay. So while my understanding is that this is a proposed ARPA expense, from my understanding, so what would be the plan going forward after the initial ARPA money is used for this, and how often do these? I guess a lot of questions here. How often do they need to be replaced? Maintenance? I mean, have you looked into the cost of all that, and where is that funding going to come from?
Right. And right now, I am not proposing an ongoing cost. Some of the other companies do really want you to buy that yearly maintenance. And from a fiscally responsible standpoint, um, we have that going on with a lot of our technology, and it just keeps adding up. So quite honestly, what I don't really want to get us into that to where we're paying them thousands and thousands of dollars a year, where you just get a brand new drone every time. I don't foresee us using these drones so often that we're wearing them out. Um, and the outdoor platforms, I'm proposing purchasing 2, so that if one does go down and need to be repaired, we will have the second one to be available. For the indoor drone, we're talking maybe a couple times a year we'll be utilizing it. And now we do have money that we can put in our normal budget for repair of any of our equipment. That's where I'm hoping to do these typical platforms. You're talking about replacing the blades, you're talking about replacing an arm or possibly something to that effect. Um, I would just rather not get into an ongoing yearly maintenance agreement. Now do have a 12-month warranty. So for the first year, they're all going to be warranted on that. But we'll have to kind of evaluate that and see moving forward if we need to enter into some kind of agreement.
So the pilots of the drones or the officers that will be expected to use these in the event of a situation, how I guess I'm not very smart on usage of drones here. So how far out do we need to launch one of these, or do we have to have, or what if it's in another beat and you have an officer in Southwest and something's occurring on another part of the city? I mean, does that officer need to get pulled from there and get shifted over, or do they carry it around in their car? I don't know how that all works.
Right. Well, we're only talking about 2 for the outdoor platforms. And what I would like to see is we maintain 1 at the station and 1 in a squad car that's available with a drone pilot. Only someone that's certified to utilize it. So that if they can respond to the need, they can get there. It's not gonna. If it's out in the Southwest, it's out in the Southwest. I mean, we just don't have the ability to have them already in every squad car. I think that's just going to be too expensive to maintain. Excuse me.
Let's see. I just have one more question here. Nope, I think that's it for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Either way. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, briefly, we're in a Class B zone for the airport. Is that going to adversely interfere with the operation of the drone? And how high are you going to? What do you have any idea as to how high you intend to fly them?
There is restrictions on that, and I believe over by Blackhawk Road, there is a no-fly zone that you can get a waiver for law enforcement to be able to operate in those areas. But I couldn't tell you the height restriction right off the top of my head, but we would maintain that.
Okay.
My house is a
400.
no-fly zone.
I'm sorry.
My house is a no-fly zone for 'em.
When I took the test to become a licensed drone pilot myself, it was 400 feet. Can't go higher than 400
Thank
feet.
you. I was going to.
So I have some personal experience with this. How much is the department requesting for this program? How much are you? It's my understanding. My understanding, you're requesting ARPA funding for this. What's the dollar amount? What are we looking at?
Well, right now we are talking about 53,000 for the 3 different drones. So there's 30,000 for the 2 DJI and another 22,000 for the Brink Lemur 2.
So 80, 70
No, just 53 total.
total.
Yes,
Okay.
53,071.
Okay.
You'll recall as part of the ARPA plan, the police had like 150 that didn't have a definitive plan associated with it. The chief had come and got approval to do some added enforcement with a portion of that, and I think you have about 90,000 of that.
93,000 left,
remaining.
yes.
Yeah.
I have another question, Tim.
Yeah.
I guess I forgot. I thought I was reading somewhere when I was looking in the act itself or the state statutes on it. Now, do you have to get approval who do you get approval from to, like, say there's a parade event or something? Who does the approval on those?
The approval to use it?
Yeah, I thought there was something in there about you must obtain some approval to use it for events.
No,
Maybe I
not-
misread that somewhere.
And I have not taken the FAA class, but I don't believe that's something that we would necessarily need to register every time we do that.
Okay, one more last question. So there was, and I did read this, and you reiterated as well in your presentation about not using it for protests and marches and things like that. But wouldn't that, I mean, I guess I'm trying to understand why that is, because I understand it's the First Amendment, all those kind of things. However, aren't those potentially areas that could become hot zones for law enforcement and something could flare up? I mean, to monitor those, why is that? I guess I understand you're following the thing, but maybe you can clarify why they don't do those for those events.
I really not sure why the restriction is on that. Other than, we walk a fine line with this. We got to be careful about privacy concerns in every respect. And the state of Illinois is very mindful of that. So I don't think that they want us, even the perception that we have the ability to abuse this. So
No, and I understand, but I feel like we're doing the same thing with a, a parade or something else that's still a privacy issue. So I guess I'm trying to figure out where, what differentiates the two and, why that is.
and I can only speculate that they would be worried that maybe somebody would be trying to zero in on agitators that, or maybe there's a political component to it that they are trying to, single out. I can see why there would be a problem if we have, say, a protest that turns violent. I don't think there would be any kind of a problem with deploying it there and something like that. But I do think you walk a fine line when you start going down the road of monitoring protests and that are peaceful. You know what I'm saying? I
See what I'm saying, though? There's a lot of things that
Right.
if we're monitoring parades and certain events, I mean, we're
Correct.
still kind of doing the same thing, aren't we?
Yeah,
So,
I think so. And in Highland Park, I mean, it was a person that was up on top of a rooftop that otherwise would have been able to have been seen had they been able to fly a drone during an event like that.
right.
So
But
Okay.
just to clarify, the law explicitly prohibits you from using drones to monitor
State
political
law.
protests, right? Yeah.
No, I said I read that. I'm just trying to figure out why one is different than the other because you're still looking at people and we talk about invasion of privacy and all that kind of thing. Doesn't that apply to other events as well? That was my only question.
no, it's a
Ask
very
state
good point.
legislator.
Huh?
Ask a state legislator why
Nope,
they did
I'm
that.
just trying to get some insight because like I said, I'm not real overly knowledgeable on this stuff. So
So, quick question, just with our limitations with being adjacent to the airport, do we think it's cost effective for us to even pursue these on the outside? I can understand the inside one, but with the outside, um, due to the height limitations, no fly zones. So that means I think you said that you can apply for a waiver.
Yes,
Will you have to do that before you launch, or is that like a blanket coverage that?
I believe so. I think that's what we would do ahead of time. I don't think it's a huge area that's a no-fly zone within the city of Rock Island. I just think the benefits outweigh that difficulty that we might experience.
I mean, I'm like Alderman Parker. I also fly drones, and I know I have a limit with my canopy as far as how high I can fly. Um, the biggest issue I think we're going to run into, and hopefully this isn't an issue, is terrain. It's very dangerous if you can't see line of sight. And I don't know, I know the DJI because I have a DJI drone also. Line of sight, I know it has technology to kind of avoid different things, different obstacles. But depending on where we're launching from, that drone is going to be out of sight.
Well, let me help you with that because we need to maintain line of sight. We wouldn't be launching it. That's why you'd be putting it in a squad car and going to the site. It wouldn't be something that we would launch remotely from, like say, the police station or something like that. You would definitely need to keep an eye on it. I believe that's within the requirements as well.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. So, okay,
I guess my gut reaction to this is I was asked by my employer to become licensed to pilot a drone for job purposes. I can see the benefit. You're making compelling reasons to examples as to when this could be very useful, but I'm very skeptical of the times that it will actually be put to use. It's not a huge dollar amount when we're talking about the total ARPA allocation that we have, but it's another financial request that whether it be the police department, public works, fire, I mean, there's asks for funding everywhere, and lots of different things that we need to balance at the city council of what are we going to fund. I'm skeptical. I don't claim to be a law enforcement professional, but this seems like something that one agency in the Quad Cities can do. And when you need them, you can just reach out to a neighboring community to say, hey, can you bring your drone in here like we do maybe for other resources? I'm not entirely sure how SWAT teams work and all that good stuff. But by the number of times that we're going to use it, I'm not entirely sure that we can justify the expense, plus the other expenses that have been coming from the police department, whether it be the new license plate readers, potential conversations of other technologies that have been brought up. It's just, there's been a lot of asks, and there's a lot of other things that we need to fund here in the city of Rock Island. So I don't mean to diminish the idea. It certainly could be useful in some circumstances. I can understand that, but I'm not totally convinced that it makes enough sense at this time to pursue it.
I respect your opinion on that, Alderman Parker. I guess my rebuttal to that would be that it's potentially life-saving, and Bettendorf's use of it on Fridays is a perfect example of that. And if we had one person that went as a dementia patient that went missing, and we were able to find them in the forest or something like that, or somewhere we wouldn't normally find them, and save their life, I think it's a justifiable expense in that case.
And I agree with you. I am 100% behind this. I think with two rivers in our area, a lot of remote places, and just the tone that our world and our country is going, I think the fact that if it saves one life, that $53,000 is very, very well spent.
So let me just throw this question out there. I understand the capabilities of the drones, and I agree. It could be wonderful for this area. What would the difference be for adding a personnel, a officer on the street versus having this drone? Is there comparisons as far as costs for what we're about to spend for the drones versus actually having another police officer or something like that?
Well, I guess I don't understand quite the comparison.
I guess
Ald-
I'm trying to. I'm almost following the line with Alderman Parker. Are we going to get the costs? You know, are we spending the money wisely with this?
Correct.
Are we going to get the uses out of it? Pray that we never have to use it.
Right.
But again, it's technology. If you don't use it, then you're kind of it's sitting by the wayside. You know, you can't just launch it to practice. I guess I don't know if there's a training facility where they can actually do those type of things, but I know it has to be registered every time it launches. So we're not California, we're not Chicago. We don't have huge festivals all the time that we can kind of, you know, on the practical sense, where we can launch it for those type of events. And then we have known issues. And I get it, in the back of the head, you always got to think the what if. So you're trying to prevent the what if. But there are some in the region, in the area, not the region, in the area. We do have other departments who already have these in place. So is it really cost effective for us to kind of go down this route? Again, with the tactical side for the inside, and again, I don't know if you guys use it on that platform as much, but I'm just thinking on with the outdoor one. You had mentioned one time about it being tethered, so that means you can kind of extend your flight. Is that just adding batteries to it, or how does that actually work, where you can expand your flight time? Because I think the one for outdoors is 41-minute flight time.
Correct.
Do you have to bring it back down, switch out batteries?
No, I believe that the way the tether works is that you have the ability to swap out the batteries to the other while it's still maintaining flight, and those would be for
Oh, okay.
extended time frame. So it's just you basically would have it at a squad car, and that's parked in the right spot, and just send it up and keep an eye on things as needed.
Okay, gotcha.
And just to address your concerns, Alderman, I think that sometimes time is of the essence. That's why contacting another agency and saying, "Hey, can you come over here and do this?" Might not be the most efficient way to get things done, and we might be talking about minutes, you know, in which we can respond and with our own our program, and maybe that makes the difference. And as far as the comparison between an officer and the technology, this is an expansion of our capabilities. Um, yeah, I'll always take more officers, but the simple fact of the matter is I'm down a significant number of officers, and what this is going to do is just going to help enhance our capabilities while we're working to restaff.
I just hope that we don't train officers and then we lose them to other departments or other areas, because now they're certified to fly drones, which is more beneficial in bigger cities and bigger areas, and we don't lose our officers to that, because you're really making them marketable then if they have that, you know, on their resume, where they're licensed to fly drones, they're certified to fly drones.
Yeah.
They're pretty much they're marketable. So it's going to be really hard to make sure we retain them I think we need to make sure we have something in place with those training dollars that they stay on staff for a certain time frame so we can get that cost back. I guess that's
yeah.
pretty much where the bigger scale is. We don't want to lose any officers because we're already down.
No, we
Because
definitely
these
don't.
officers are going to be very marketable when they get this training.
And that's always a concern with all the training that we send them to. But hopefully they'll want to stay. So
I'll chime in too. I start out with, I guess, in general, I support this. I believe we should be doing this. And some of the arguments are somewhat valid, but I just guess repeat that the timing is an issue. If we could use somebody else's drone or anything else, we could use somebody else's fire truck and not have our own.
It's not a bad idea.
And response times, it becomes an issue, whether it be an ambulance. You could look at a number of different tools that first responders have that we have in place. How many times do you use the jaws of life or whatever it is? That makes a big difference versus borrowing it from somebody else. I think it's, and once again, replacing a police officer, not replacing, instead of a police officer, this one has different capabilities than a police officer can have. When you got a bird's eye view, an officer does not have that. So you could add 2 or 3 or 4 officers and you still don't get the advantage of what this thing can do image wise and everything else. But I think there's times that we forget how often do we have dementia cases out there, people that are, I've seen several in the news not too long ago. Marcus unfortunately had to fish some out. And so it may be that kind of emergency versus a fight or something violent. Those seem to happen more often than the violent ones. Yeah. And so I think it's important that we're support this and that we have our force up to date. As far as the training and losing them, you can do that with any department with professional training. We send people in finance to training. We send people in parks to training. We do a number of different areas, and you could have that fear if you wanted to that you're going to lose them because now you've trained them, and that's just a matter of making sure that we have the right work environment and pay to be able to keep employees. Is the biggest important part there versus holding back on professional development. My personal opinion, we shouldn't hold anybody back on personal development. It benefits the city and the citizens ongoing. So, but I totally support this.
I just want to clarify. I support it also well. I just want to make sure that we put some kind of stipulations in when we're getting this training that we have them on board for a while. We lock them in to stay on staff for a while. They can't get the training and then a year or 2 down the road, they're able to leave. Want to make another quick point. This is in the air. So I want to just make a point because I am a drone operator. It's very hard to see sometimes because you're in the air looking down unless the subject is looking up and things like that. So it's not as easy as everyone thinks. We have a drone, so it solves a lot of things. There's still a lot of technical things you have to kind of take into consideration, the trees, the wires. I mean, there's a lot of obstacles that you really have to navigate through to get that clear picture. It's not as easy as one thinks trying to operate a drone.
I can understand that. And I don't have one. My brother has one and played around with that one. You're correct. But nothing's perfect. There's no quote silver bullet in any tool or thing we have that you have that opportunity or have that issue.
I'd love to see it, Chief. I mean, if we go forward with this, I definitely would love to see it.
Okay. I got one last question. Why?
Hey, it's my turn.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear you. Sorry.
No, you're fine, Randy. I just had a quick question. You mentioned 5 potential candidates for it. Do you see this as a merit increase or a pay increase, or is this just a responsibility increase? That's a question I have.
right now I see it as a responsibility increase. There's been talk about maybe if there's enough interest, we kind of create our own unit, drone unit, and ultimately I'd like to expand it to where we could have enough that really we can utilize somebody in a moment's notice. We always have at least 1 or 2 people available. And because when the emergency happens, you don't really want to be worrying about somebody coming from home, like I said.
Randy, you're up.
No, you just asked my question, so I don't have one now.
All right. If there's any other further questions or comments. Thank you very much, Chief. Appreciate it. Look forward. I need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Adjourned till 6:45. Council.